enemies, you can actually permanently lose a character or enemy party. It's kind of weird, but it's also kind of fun.
Yeah, Yagamoth sometimes on his channel will do a single character challenge run for this game, and it'll try to complete the game as quickly as possible with only one character. And he will keep track of the last points in the game where he needs each character, and then once the character is no longer needed to complete the game, he'll return to the sewers here, get a snowman character, and use the snowman abduction glitch in order to just delete that character from the party permanently.
I think we just have a picnic right now.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Should I wait? Or should I continue?
I think we should just continue the commentary as if we're not in a picnic, and then that way, whenever it gets back on, it still will have proper commentary.
It's back refresh already. Let's just continue then. Okay, the second set of ruins here is actually an area where we have pretty much planned out every single room how we want it to be. Like, we just move a little bit to the right and dash straight down, or, well, we don't do that and get completely destroyed. Well, that's...
Yeah, this is a high risk area, but as long as you execute everything correctly, nothing should go wrong, but the amount of error that has to happen before you start taking damage and getting your party members just instantly killed is not that big. A small error will get your party wiped pretty quickly here. That's why he made a safety save before entering.
Indeed. So yeah, this room here, we go a bit to the right. By the way, also something worth noting, the sprite actually has a slightly different hitbox compared to the girl and the boy, which means his hitbox is a bit wider. So in the various areas, you actually cannot do the same movement with the sprite compared to what you would normally do with the boy or the girl, just having them in the lead. So it's kind of weird that you have to adjust like that, but you need to keep that in mind if you just, well, more or less by chance happen to have the sprite in the lead of your party. Here I briefly give control over the second controller to the lady. And here the lady and the sprite always get hit. Here I take once again control over two characters in order for me to run through this section slightly faster than before. And then I try to do the following. I try to walk exactly on this wall here, spawn the ice in the bottom left, and preferably not have the sprite die again, which, well, whatever. And then that means in this area here, I will only have to deal with one of those little devil guys. Those are called imps, and dealing with imps is actually really big of a headache. Thankfully, that went pretty well, aside from, well, the sprite accidentally going too far and straight up dying. So now I only have 3 cups of wishes, so I need to keep track of that.
Yeah, that large room with the button where you have to go around the spikes is the one room where you really have to just react to what the enemy AI is doing. Since you have the imp on the screen for so long, it has enough time to either breathe fire or throw its tridents or cast a spell, and you just have to deal with it. Doom's Wall is another boss where you just use the weapon charge glitch. The main thing he was worried about in that fight was making sure that he did not kill both of the side eyes before he killed the center eye. If he did that accidentally, then the boss would go into a enraged mode where it keeps using telekinesis and stuff on your party members, and that could keep him permanently stun locked with the boy and therefore unable to do the weapon charge glitch thereafter. But in this case it went flawlessly, so now we're going on towards Vampire.
Also, real quick to answer something in chat. Anyone watching this from Germany or Switzerland or Austria or any German-speaking country for that matter, if you played this game as a kid, you remember the sprite being female. However, in the English version and in the French version, the sprite is actually male, and in the original Japanese version, he is, well, gender neutral. So just kind of want to point that out, in case anyone is confused about that. Okay, come on. Also here we have the vampire. I don't like the vampire too much, but it's actually quite interesting and fascinating how much you can do if he gives you a pattern. But if not, well, you're just waiting until he jumps down. So, in a 1-player 2 controller run, you need to rely on your physical weapon damage. Certain enemies and bosses can get completely immune to being hit by physical weapons, like the vampire if he is flying around. Let's see. Oh, alrighty. I'll leave that to you, Crow.
Sure. If Vampire chooses to fly around in the air, then he is just not vulnerable to physical attacks at all. As long as he's jumping around, he can be manipulated in a few ways. What you've seen here is that after Vampire takes a hit, he checks, kind of like Spiky Tiger, for if there is an enemy immediately near him, and if so, he will grab that character and start trying to gnaw on him. He then used the slowdown spell, which does not inflict any damage, in order to just apply a meaningless animation on Vampire. And in between the slowdown casts, he just hit him again and again with the weapon overcharge glitch. And if I'm not mistaken, that was perfect RNG for this fight, was it not?
Yes, this is pretty much as good as it gets.
Yeah, that was excellent. That fight can easily make you lose 3 minutes or so if Vampire just decides to stay high in the air. And one of the spells he has is Energy Absorb, which drains your HP. And sometimes he can actually just gain HP over the course of the fight faster than he's permitting you to deal him damage, just based off of pure randomness.
Indeed. Oh, that was a really good fight. The only way this fight could go faster is if I didn't cast the slowdown spells to, well, lock Vampire into place, but it is much more reliable to just cast slowdown, because I get in about 4 or 5 attacks before Vampire starts flying away again, which is way better than, well, just the ordinary 1 attack. Also the lady here, I did everything well. She should die here in 2 hits. Very nice. And that means I will be able to just do the next area. Skip without any trouble. Or hopefully anyways. So this skip was actually discovered by Crow. So for a long time we kind of had in mind, if only we could just somehow sneak past those guards. But we couldn't. So earlier in the run I was actually phasing through an NPC by using the AI control character's ability to walk through certain NPCs. But they cannot walk through those guards, because it's a combat zone and you cannot walk through enemies in the combat zone. However, you can do, well, this little trick with a ghost character. So, also pathing in Secret of Mana is pretty spectacular, and maybe Crow can explain a little bit more about what I'm doing now.
Sure. So the goal here is to get past the guards that are blocking you from going through the rest of the castle. What's supposed to happen here is you meet up with the Emperor, and it's a fake banquet in your honor or for a truce or whatever. And the Emperor then traps your party, puts you into a Mantis Ant fight. However, if we can sneak past those guards, then we can get through. It turns out that ghost characters can always walk through NPCs. Technically, the reason for this is that even whenever you're in a combat zone, ghosts do not have their weapons out. They are never in combat. So, since the girl was dead, Yagamoth positioned the girl's ghost on the left side of the wall, and then put the boy on the right side of the wall and turned off control of the sprite. This meant that the girl was trying to walk towards the boy, but the AI's pathing to get around obstacles is not particularly good. And if Yagamoth walks in towards the wall, towards the girl winds up just kind of walking up and down, trying to figure out a way across the wall and failing. While she was above the guard, since she's allowed to walk through NPCs, at that point, Yagamoth revived her, and then she was passed, and then You just go through the rest of the castle, which is supposed to have enemies, but because we never completed the Mantis Ant, we were still in fake banquet mode. So we just go through the dungeon without any trouble, get straight to the Mech Rider 2 fight, which he cheesed out by walking onto the bottom of the arena. And Mech Rider is always trying to move to your same horizontal plane.
Mhm.
And by being along the bottom, Mech Rider never succeeded in getting on his same level. And so he just kind of moved back and forth continuously until eventually Yagamoth got the final hit through.
Indeed. So, and we might as well want to start explaining what is going to happen here. So, for reference, to just summarize everything, I'm going to get invisible characters, I'm going forward through the Grand Palace way too early, and then I will just skip a huge portion of the game. So, what exactly were you doing here? I see where I'm going.
Where are you going?
I know where. Okay, it's okay. Well, good job. Alright.
Okay, so this is classic Yagamoth flammy pathing, but right now he's making a corrupted save file. At the beginning of the game, we made use of the fact that whenever you save the game, it takes you, whenever you reload it, not back to where it was that you made the save, but instead where it was when you entered the room where you made the save. That information was not recorded in this case because you landed via Flammy rather than walking into the room normally. So the save file he just made has no idea where he is located. And if he uses LR select start and holds those buttons for a second or two in order to reset the game, then he reloads that corrupted save file. The game will put him into whichever room he most recently entered in the first game he was playing before he reset. He is going to do that with a new game here in order to get a character in cutscene mode. In all of these scenes here that you just saw, the game was moving the screen by using an invisible character that was in cutscene mode, and as long as you have at least one invisible character in your party, the game allows all of your party members to walk through walls with impunity as long as the game's event system is active. That is, a text box is open, it's opening a chest, it's considering whether you are supposed to jump over a gap after you hit a whip pole. All of those things activate the event system. So here, he is going to get a couple of his characters out of cutscene mode because cutscene mode characters are not allowed to interact with doors or anything like that. So he'll enter the door here, and this is actually too early for him to be in this section of the game. So as soon as you enter, there's some inexplicable force blocking you from going through the tree palace. But while this text box is up, because the sprite is still in cutscene mode, you can just walk through the rest of this map, which is eventually supposed to have this awesome pyramid thing going on with Star of Darkness, which is a great track that we unfortunately don't get to hear playing in the background. So now he has just walked straight to the entrance of the Grand Palace. He is now going to again walk through walls, but in order to do so, in order to get through this area without the elements of light or dark that he never obtained, he is going to need to farm this enemy right here enough times, however many times it takes, for it to drop a treasure chest, because he is going to use the treasure chest opening event in order to get his party to walk through walls once more, and thereby skip needing to get either Shade or Lumina, which are normally required to get stairs in this area. There's actually more than one way to do the Grand Palace skip. There's another way that involves making use of Santa Claus and wishing for an extra life for Christmas. If you want to see that way, you can go through the VODs and look for my run, which was the first run of this marathon. And that method involves essentially going through the Grand Palace backwards after having intentionally lost to the watermelon enemy. This trick here hinges on the multi-tap, because otherwise he would be unable to go out of bounds in the Tree Palace exterior like he did. He needed to turn off the multi-tap so he could drag the character that had initially entered the Tree Palace down and past the wall that normally keeps you in the sunken version of the map. So this grind is unfortunately just how the multi-tap category for this game works now. It's very unfortunate, but about an hour and a half into the run, you are completely at the mercy of the drop RNG. I'm forgetting right now what the odds of a chest dropping are, but it's not particularly high.
No, I think it's 1 in 16, actually. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
So-
if you get perfect RNG, you save like 3 minutes over the old route. But, well, no one really... Oh, there we go. No one really wants to get that kind of, well, thing going, really. So, this is actually one of the big reasons as to why we decided to split up the categories into multi-tap or no multi-tap. Oh, they even got a dual trap on top of that. Wow. And yeah, that's just kind of how this works. Now we managed to walk through the wall thanks to spawning a chest, and I will just take the easy way across this area here without having to worry about anything else. Oh, or, well, or not.
That's unfortunate. Every time you open a chest in this game, if your agility isn't high enough, which obviously it isn't because we're massively under-leveled, the game will...
What?
Okay. He's having a bit of trouble here, but
Yeah.
when you open a chest, the game will give you a 50% chance of that chest being trapped. And in this case, the trap was a doom trap, which either leaves you with 1 HP or just outright kills you, just random selection. So now he needs to trigger the whip pull event as he enters this room. Otherwise, he would have the same getting kicked out of the room effect that he had the first time he entered. And I just noticed that Yagamoth is down to 1 cup of wishes.
Oh, thank you.
This will actually be fixed, I believe, whenever he save warps into the Mech Rider 3 fight.
Yes, it will. Actually, I considered not doing that save warp there because the character level would be higher, but considering that I do definitely want to have at least 2 cups of wishes, that would be kind of bad for us. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay.
No! Oh!
Oh dear. At this point, I think you can rope out and then use the flammy drum to get back to the front entrance.
Probably. I have never done that before.
Since you've cleared the Snapdragon, I believe you can enter that way now.
Oopsie.
So, because he had an invisible character, he was able to walk through walls during the Snapdragon boss clearing event. But the Snapdragon's boss event, it works a little differently than most. And you are actually allowed to continue walking during it. And in fact, if you're Oh no, that doesn't work? I thought it did.
I have to do the normal front entrance again. Oh boy.
What do we do now, actually? I'm not sure. Because you can't do watermelon.
No, but I can...
Oh, I see. You have to do the treasure chest again.
Wait, just go for the treasure chest again. That...
That's unfortunate.
Yep, that's pretty unfortunate.
If you're walking as the Snapdragon dies, normally your party just walking into a wall like that, but because the sprite was invisible, He was able to walk through walls, and he wound up way out of bounds and just got stuck there.
Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. And that's the event we avoid by hitting the rope pole over there. That's pretty unfortunate. And there's no good backup for that either. So yeah, this treasure chest farming here, by the way, is the big reason as to why we finally decided to split up the categories into multi-tap and no multi-tap. Before, it was just kind of mostly convenience and a little bit of time save. But now it's just, do we really want to farm this chest thing here? Not really. But I figured for today, the demonstration of this route with the multi-tap would be a nice thing to see for people, since, oh wow, if you get that lucky, you would be pretty quick and getting through here. I believe I can just, yeah. So yeah, that works. And I also know from experience that I can actually walk this here. So,
Another doom trap.
and let me actually do weapon crafting real quick.
Oh, right, now you have to get through this a bit harder. Okay, so this is the weapon grafting glitch. He is, while, oops, he did not do that right, but he has the axe equipped, and then while he has blue numbers showing on him from healing, he switched to the whip. This causes the game to erroneously keep the axe's animations up, even though he has the whip equipped. This allows him to attack the whip pole using technically the whip, but using a melee weapon animation. So that way he was able to stand on a whip pole tile and attack the whip pole that he was right next to. And the game does not actually acknowledge that this was the wrong whip pole. All it cares about is that he attacked a whip pole.
Hi, I've never seen that before.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess because you cleared the biting lizard already.
That was really
that
weird.
Allowed, those people are normally just supposed to be there, and then you fight the watermelon enemy, but yeah, that didn't happen.
That was really strange. I've never seen that before, but I've also never made that mistake before, since it's a pretty new-ish route, and we don't necessarily have much motivation to go for that chest farm this late in the game, so we just decided to go mostly without multi-tap now.
So this is Hexus. Hexus has kind of a complicated... she will change colors if you are very far away from her, either above, to the left, or to the right. We don't want that to happen for the most part. Instead, we want her to be in her default form, where she casts either Dispel or Midge... What's it called? Pigment's Glare, that's it. Pigment's Glare. Which will kill the girl, but we can use a Royal Jam. And unlike the other curing items, Royal Jam works on characters that are at 0 HP. So while the damage numbers are showing, he can just toss a Royal Jam on, and that will keep the girl alive each time she happens to get killed.
Indeed. So, and now I'm going to be using the save warp technique with the same save file to get into the next boss arena, because we just kind of skip the previous section in a weird kind of way. We skip 2 text boxes and we can immediately start moving at the beginning of this fight, which saves a fair bit of time. So, and now, for this fight in complete silence, we kill him with repeated charge attacks, essentially. So, by the way,
there are many... Yeah,
excuse me. For Hexes, I would like to point out something I think we haven't mentioned yet. Bosses almost always target the character that is closest to them with their offensive spells, outside of very few instances. So most of the time I try to keep some character in between the boy and the bosses in order for me to have them absorb the damage they would take. And also here, this guy here, He has a pretty stupid AI script. He casts Wall on himself, which reflects spells, and then he tries to buff himself, which reflects the buff spell off the wall onto our characters, and he is never buffed. But because he's never buffed, he never stops casting buff spells. So, yeah. It's kind of weird. I think I'm going to...
Will you be getting the armor or not?
No, I'm not going to get the armor, but I'm going to set up another save file, I think. Just in case stuff goes really south, which it can, but we hope that it doesn't, since the upcoming section is not the Pure Lands, even though that can go really south too if you have to go there. The upcoming section is going to be the Mana Fortress already. So, if you would do me the honor, Crow, and explain why can we go straight to the Mana Fortress? How does that work?
Okay, so whenever you land at the Mana Fortress at this point in the game is supposed to tell you that there's a barrier that's keeping you out. And in order to get rid of the barrier, you need to go through the Pure Lands cutscenes. And at the end, the Mana Fortress fires its weapons at the Mana Tree. There's a bunch of plot stuff that goes on that I won't spoil, I guess. And then the Mana Fortress's shield goes down. Then you can enter it. Instead, though, we're going to use kind of a similar trick as what we did in order to get into the Biting Lizard fight. The Snapdragon fight. Where we're going to stack up an event while we're going into the Mana Fortress. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into that chick-looking thing that's actually a spring called High Stepper that's supposed to launch you from the low ground to the high ground. So because he jumped into that spring while he was calling Flammy, this has caused, first of all, the game to flip which controller is controlling Flammy. And second of all, when he lands at the Mana Fortress, instead of checking for the barrier, it instead just made him jump forward. Fun fact, this was actually the very first routing contribution that I made to the game. Before I even was a speedrunner of the game, I was watching Stinger and Yagamoth play through, and I came up with this alternate way to perform the Pure Land skip. You can also do it with the Whip Pull in the Lofty Mountains.
Yes, indeed. The Whip Pull with the Lofty Mountains is used still for the one controller category, but I actually just messed this up. So, I tried to spawn a specific enemy in order for me to be able to run through the wall to the next section of this area, which doesn't save a whole lot of time, but it saves me a whole lot of headache, because I don't have to worry about all the enemies around here. I guess on the bright side, I do save quite a few resources not doing that skip through the wall. So that's probably plus wow.
Oh dear. So as a quick reminder, last dungeon of the game, and he still has armor back from Kakara. So essentially everything here, even the enemies that are allegedly old enemies at this point in the game, will usually one-shot his characters. So he is constantly walking very strangely in order to manipulate which enemies spawn and which ones don't. And whenever an enemy shows up that could wreck him, he's attempting to go through carefully, although that metal crab that he tried to wait out the boomerang attack from wound up just doing the attack once he finally started to go across, so that was unfortunate.
Yeah, that was pretty poor timing on my end. Alrighty, and here we have essentially a recolor of the vampire fight. Once again, that can go very wrong, just without you doing anything wrong. But sometimes it goes well. Let's see what he is going to do for us. Right now that doesn't look good, but well, I kind of hope he comes down here.
Yeah, just like Vampire, as long as Buffy decides to stay in the air, he cannot deal any damage. He just has to wait for him to start jumping around. In the meantime, all the spells can have their damage canceled in a number of ways. You can toss a barrel, which tends to be the fastest way to cancel the damage. He can throw a healing item on. There he actually just did a barrel launch, I guess for fun. The barrel will protect him from any further physical damage that comes through. But magic spells cannot be cancelled in that way. So here he got his first attack in, and now he's going to attempt to do the same lockdown that he did against Vampire, although he's starting from only 4 MP on the sprite. I don't know if he caught that. That
Actually
may become a
didn't.
problem shortly. So he is attempting to use the slowdown spell just to cause some generic animation to show up on Buffy. And in between those animations, he's doing an attack with the boy. And now, since he ran out of MP, he had to restore the MP, which interrupted his lockdown, and now Buffy is back in the air, and he is draining HP from the party members, and depending on how long this takes, the fight could wind up taking a very long time. As a piece of advice for beginning runners of this game, there are 2 teleporter tiles in this room that are normally the exit tiles for the room. If the boy ever steps on one of those tiles, then the game will cause the boy to lose his overcharge. So make sure you don't do that if you're trying to learn the game. At this point, Yagamoth has identified that he's running out of supplies, so he's going to do the same equipment trashing glitch that he did at the start of the game in order to restock some of them. In particular, he just restocked the Royal Jams, which again are allowed to heal targets that are at 0 HP, but he was a little late in using it that time, and the target was already dead.
Alrighty, here we go.
Barrels are technically the fastest way to cancel damage because it's just an animation and nothing else. Whereas if he uses a curing item, he has to wait for the healing numbers afterward.
Okay, I could have gone worse, but I could have gone a lot better too. So, real quick a note for the first lockdown that I initiated. I was actually hesitating in the menu real quick, because I recognized that once Buffy would have grabbed the sprite was actually out of bounds towards the top, and I could have not continued moving upwards if I just left it like that. So I had to scroll the screen manually up with the "don't hit me." Oh my god.
Usually the Wolf Lord cast a spell as soon as they hit the screen. There's a tiny chance that they will do an attack first. And nice glitch on the boy there.
Yep.
He wasn't even trying to glitch the game there, but he wound up with the boy flying around with the engulfed status and depth status simultaneously being applied. Yeah, this game is so glitchy that you wind up encountering glitches even if you're trying to play the glitchless category.
Yep.
We always just find new, interesting things. I always like to say that we find more glitches in this game accidentally than whenever we're intentionally hunting them down, and that probably is true.
Indeed. Alrighty, let's talk about Red Slime. Red Slime can only do one thing currently, because we are not using any spells on him. The only thing Red Slime can do to you is cast Acid Rain on your characters. I think I recently figured out he will only cast Acid Rain on the character that is the furthest away from the center. Because his center actually is, well, centers between all of your party members, that kind of means there are always going to be 2 party members between he oscillates, which are the furthest away from his center, which means he will never attack the boy as long as the boy is the closest to the middle. And that was actually 2 crits. You have a theory on that?
Yeah. My guess is that the way that the Dread Slime keeps himself in the center is that his AI script, whereas most bosses will constantly target the closest party member, and then move towards that. In order to move into the center of the map, he constantly tries to move towards the furthest away party member. And then that just incidentally causes him to target furthest away people.
That's interesting.
While also moving him towards the center of mass of your party.
I think that makes a lot of sense, yeah. That would be a simple way to handle that without using any, what's the word, triangulation?
Right.
That's pretty clever, actually. Alrighty, here I need to do a ton of spawn manipulation in order to not get completely destroyed this time, hopefully. So far, we kind of managed to get away with our lives, but this section is probably the most brutal one in terms of, well, if enemies hit you, you're just straight up dead. So let's not get hit. Alrighty.
Yeah, if you're a player that likes to do just farming in a casual playthrough, this is where you would do it. This is where the hardest enemies are. This is where most of the rare drops to get your level 9 weapons and your strongest armor. This is where all that can be found. All the Master Ninjas, the Terminators, the Wolf Lords, all of the hardest enemies in the game that will all definitely one-shot him, even with the levels that he gained during the boss fights that he just went through. The Terminators that he got caught up on for a bit there rarely will cast Loosened Beam, which is what happened there. Usually the threat that they pose is that they swing a Morning Star, which has a minimum range, so if you actually just are standing right next to them, they cannot hit you with their physical attack. But if you are a medium distance from them, then they will one-shot your whole party.
Indeed. So, alrighty, upcoming we have pretty much the second to last boss in this game. This is going to be the Dark Lich, and just for reference, the record already finished the game about 20 seconds ago, despite losing about 3.5 minutes to the chest farm. But that is just kind of a outlook how much faster this run could go in theory if everything went well. However, rarely everything goes well, because that's just kind of how Seeker of Mana is in a sense. So, Dark Lich has 6666 HP. And, well, we just try and hit him as often as possible. He actually has a bit of an interesting AI script where he alternates between using magical spells and physical spells. He starts off with physical spells, and I position the girl right next to his head, so in case he uses the physical spell for the beam, he will just kind of not hit him at all, not hit her at all. And I accidentally swapped the wrong weapon there. And there we go, that's exactly.
We will use the sword for the overcharge during this fight, because the sword technically has a very slightly higher hit chance, and we are going to want to use the mana sword for the next fight anyway, so we might as well do the switch at this time. Thanatos, aside from attacking with spells and physical spells, will sometimes become transparent and then burrow himself into the ground. If that happens, then we have a chance that we might be able to see the headbang glitch, which is just an AI loop.
Wow.
It's not even a glitch technically, it's just a abuse of his AI pattern, but we didn't have to do that this time. We just got the straight up victory while cancelling damage from the spells, and that brings us to now.
Indeed, that is probably the fastest way we can do. Also, this thing here I did earlier already. I'm actually going to go into a full screen menu here in order to cancel out the level up texts. Otherwise, the story and events would only progress once all the level up text boxes have displayed one at a time. So we cancel that out by going into a full screen menu.
We just now obtained all of the Dryad magic. We skipped obtaining Dryad, or several of the other elements for that matter, but once they unlock the mana magic spell for you, at that time, the way they do it causes you to learn all of the Dryad. So, if he wanted to cast Revivifier at this point, instead of using a Cup of Fishes, he technically can.
Indeed. So, and here we use another little skip, where we cast mana magic on the boy's sword. So if you don't know this game, you are supposed to cast both the sprites and the girl's mana magic onto the sword in order to revive the mana sword and unlock it, which places the mana sword in the boy's hand. That has, the first time you cast it, about a 20-ish second little cutscene which completely freezes the game. We skip that little cutscene by stepping onto the teleporter outside with a specific timing. And now we just have a mana sword. However, the mana sword actually runs out eventually. It's essentially on a timer. But in order for us to prevent it from running out, we just cast a secondary saber over it. And on top of that, normally you cannot trade the weapon between the boy and the other characters. But well, we will be able to do that anyways, just because we cast Frost Saber on it. We could also cast any other saber on it, but Frost Saber is just the quickest to do.
Essentially what's going on is that it uses the same variables to keep track of when the saber has been expended versus when the mana sword's been expended, but it uses those variables in different ways. So as a result, the mana sword is now basically just a generic normal weapon that happens to be in the boy's hands. There's also an additional bonus to the damage that you're supposed to get from the mana sword based on how much weapon experience the boy has across all of his different weapons. That buff goes away whenever the elemental saber that he put onto the sword goes away. At this point, he is keeping the girl invincible by magic. He's reviving the boy by using Cure Water, and he is casting Acid Rain with the sprite in order to reduce the defense power on the Mana Beast. Enemies in this game can take a maximum amount of damage that is 999 minus their defense power. So by reducing the Mana Beast's defense power, we can deal a little bit more damage per swing. So even though we are probably dealing somewhere around 2,000 damage if you do the math, we're only getting... At first it was 600 some damage, and now it's 500 some damage, just because the Mana Beast has a lot of defense power. When he gets a critical hit, that actually negates that damage cap, so we can go all the way up to 999. And if he happens to get enough critical hits, he might be able to get this done in one cycle. Did not happen this time, though. It is quite rare. You need to get kind of lucky for it.
Indeed. But the one cycle would save you about a minute. Also, something I would like to point out, you do not actually need the Mana Sword in order to defeat the Mana Beast. The reason why we get the Mana Sword is actually because it just has a 100% chance to hit instead of the usual 70% chance to hit at this point in the game. So it's just very reliable, costs you very little time to set up, and well, you don't have to worry about missing ever again. Oh, I can't open the menu now. Okay.
Yeah, Yagamoth was just lamenting his inability to show off a glitch that I showed during the first run of the game. I'll leave you in suspense as to what that glitch was, but for now, the game is over. We have defeated the Mana Beast.
Indeed, and as soon as the party gathers, that is when we hit the final split. And there we go. Less than 2 hours, which is pretty decent. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that was Seeker of Mana, one player true controller. Once again, thank you very much to you, Crow, for the additional commentary. That was very nice to have someone who I could just kind of, well, I'm focused on the game now, he can explain it. That was really awesome, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me here.
Indeed. And if you'd like to see the single controller category that was earlier in the marathon, run by Crow, and I can highly recommend you check that out. Once again, there are different categories for this game. There is currently one player, one controller. There is one player 2 controller with multi-tap and one player 2 controller without multi-tap. There is the glitchless category, and then there is the magic percent, yeah, the major skip category, which is technically the true any percent, which completes the game under 8 minutes or so. So yeah, the credits here are about 7 minutes. I'm not sure whether we have 7 minutes because I think we are probably still behind on schedule and would likely continue on after this one here.
We do actually have a few minutes, so if you want to show off the credits by any means.
Oh, that's nice, because I really like those credits in this game. It's actually pretty neat. Well then, just for reference for anyone watching this, if you have played this game casually and saw the ending screen is kind of iconic, but what you don't necessarily realize is that at the very end of the ending screen you see, well, a moon. Surprise. But the moon can actually be in 3 different phases. Which one it is, we don't actually know. We don't even know how it's caused. But it can be a full moon, a crescent moon, or a 2/3 moon, or what people call it, a gibbous moon, I think.
Waxing gibbous.
Waxing gibbous, alrighty. So yeah, that can be a thing. So whichever one it is going to be, we don't know. Feel free to guess there, and well, if you win some internet points, or I don't know, cookies? I guess internet cookies on browsers are slightly different than the tasty ones.
Yeah, whenever I stream the game, I have a chat bot that keeps track of each person's guesses. It is a tradition after a Secret of Mana speedrun for everyone that's watching in chat to put into the chat their guess for what the moon phase is going to be. And then at the end, you just celebrate whoever won. So I expect chat to be filled with everyone's guesses. All 2,000 some of you guys, and I'm sure 1,000 or so are lurkers, get logged in and let us know what you think it's going to be. Now, fun fact about the king there, King Truffle. Right after we got Flammy, he told us to deliver him to Matango, and he told us where Matango was relative to where we were. And then what you're supposed to do is drop him off, and then he tells you how to use Flammy more precisely. But we never did that, so King Truffle was probably just tagging along with us for the entire rest of the game and is probably just lost on the Mana Fortress somewhere.
Yeah, that poor guy. Also, fun fact, with the save warp technique that you can do, you can actually save warp into each one of those cutscene scenes, and that has kind of various weird effects, such as the cutscene scenes here are just copies of the original scenes, and the screen transitions and entrances, doorways, or what do you call those things where you read stuff from?
Signs?
Signs, there we go, that's the word, thank you. The signs also, all of those have just kind of more or less randomly assigned triggers, and so you may be able to just walk into a house and suddenly you're right next to the water palace. Doesn't make much sense, but hey, it works anyways. Also, fun fact, if you save warp into this cutscene here, Nico actually walks up and down. He has a sprite, I think it just wiggled there, that was weird. He has a sprite where he has a back sprite, but you never actually get to see the back of Nico, so that's kind of weird. Also, he has a walking animation. Well, I would say it's going to...
There are a number of unused sprites in this game if you go digging around. Various websites will speculate as to what each one maybe was supposed to be.
Indeed. Also, I would like to make a quick shout-out to a website that I discovered very early on, way before I even knew about speedrunning, that is called Flying Omelette, that had quite a few glitches on weirdnesses and oddities displayed on the website that I found quite fascinating and amusing, and made me look more into the game and eventually find out about speedrunning. So that's pretty awesome. Although by now, I can't tell you for certain things as to what exactly is happening there. I did try to send them a message, but I don't think they updated the information there yet. Either way, that's a really old website, so I don't expect it to be updated, but it was pretty awesome to just kind of recently find that website again and just kind of, oh yeah, I once was there. Okay. Well then, now the boy goes all the way back and delivers the mana sword back to where he took it from. And interestingly enough, there is a speculation that there is supposed to be a New Game Plus category or mode, because essentially the game kind of ends the way it starts. And the game also begins with the words, and history flows like a river. No, and time flows like a river and history repeats. Let me try to say that correctly. Thank you, Tompa, that one exactly. Okay, which moon is it, Crow?
Well, I'm on like a 3-second delay from you, so I'll get it a little bit later, but looks like we're getting a waxing gibbous moon. Hooray! That's the one I always choose.
Nice. Alrighty, and that is the end for this run, and in theory, if I just looked at the schedule correctly, we are pretty much caught up on the schedule, and the next run should be starting in a minute.
We're pretty much dead on. So thank you again, Yagamoth, for both of your runs. They've been a blast to watch. Next up, we'll have, and I hope I'm gonna say this right, Elrock or Larock.